New Orleans. A city pulsing with life, music and history. Tourists flock to its vibrant streets, drawn to the allure of the French Quarter. They wander through the bustling markets, enchanted by the colourful characters and the aroma of Cajun spices. But beneath the surface, a darkness lingers, a history steeped in voodoo, shadowed alleys and tales of the undead. This hidden side of New Orleans is what truly defines its character. It's a city where the veil between the living and the dead is thin, where spirits roam free, and where the past refuses to stay buried. And it was here, in the heart of this bewitching city, that Sarah's nightmare began. Sarah, a bright-eyed college student from a quiet Midwestern town, arrived in New Orleans with a heart full of dreams. She yearned for adventure, for a taste of a world far removed from her ordinary life. New Orleans, with its intoxicating energy and promise of the unknown, seemed like the perfect place to begin her journey. She found a charming apartment in a historic building on Esplanade Avenue, its wrought iron balconies overlooking the lively street below.
The air hummed with possibility. I felt invigorated, ready to embrace all that New Orleans had to offer. I had no idea that the city held a dark secret, a secret that would soon unravel my life.
The apartment was everything Sarah had imagined. Nestled in the heart of New Orleans, it was a dream come true for her. The charm of the Victorian-style building was undeniable, and she felt an immediate connection to its history and elegance. High ceilings, antique furniture, and long windows that bathed the rooms in a warm, golden light. Each room seemed to tell a story, whispering secrets of the past through its ornate decor and timeless beauty. But as the days turned into nights, a sense of unease began to creep in. The once comforting shadows now seemed to stretch and twist in unsettling ways, casting eerie shapes on the walls. The air grew heavy, thick with an unseen presence. It was as if the apartment itself was alive, breathing down her neck, watching her every move. Sounds, once dismissed as the city's nocturnal symphony, now sent shivers down her spine. The distant wail of a siren, the rustle of leaves, even the creak of the old building seemed amplified, echoing through the silent night. Floorboards creaked when no one walked on them. The sound was unmistakable, a slow, deliberate groan that seemed to follow her from room to room. A door slammed shut, seemingly on its own. It was as if the apartment was trying to communicate, to send a message that she was not alone.
I tried to ignore the unsettling occurrences. I told myself it was just the quirks of an old building, nothing more. I told myself it was just the old building settling or my imagination running wild. But the feeling of being watched, of not being alone, was hard to shake. But deep down, a seed of doubt had been planted, growing steadily with each passing day. The once beautiful apartment now felt like a gilded cage, trapping me in its mysterious grip.
Sleep became elusive. Every creak, every groan of the old house seemed amplified in the stillness of the night. Sarah would lie awake, her heart pounding in her chest, listening to the symphony of unsettling noises around her. Then came the whispers, soft, barely audible murmurs that seemed to slither out from the shadows. They spoke her name, their voices cold and ethereal, sending chills down her spine.
One night I woke with a start, the distinct feeling of someone watching me. I turned my head slowly, my breath catching in my throat. A dark figure stood at the foot of my bed, its edges blurring in the dim moonlight.
Terror gripped Sarah's heart, squeezing the air from her lungs.
I couldn't scream, couldn't move, couldn't do anything but stare at the shadowy figure.
It hovered there for a moment, its presence radiating an icy cold that seemed to seep into her bones.
Then, as quickly as it appeared, the figure vanished.
Sarah lay frozen in fear, her mind racing to make sense of what she had seen.
I knew with chilling certainty that I wasn't alone in the apartment.
The next morning, sunlight streamed through the windows, chasing away the shadows and offering a brief respite from the terror of the night. But the feeling of dread remained, clinging to Sarah like a shroud. Days turned into a blur of fear and anxiety.
The whispers continued, growing louder, more insistent.
The shadowy figure made its presence known more frequently, no longer confined to the darkness of night.
I caught glimpses of it lurking in the corners of my vision, a fleeting silhouette that sent shivers down my spine.
It seemed to grow stronger with each passing day, feeding off her terror.
I tried to convince myself that it was all in my mind, a byproduct of stress or the unfamiliar surroundings.
But the evidence was impossible to ignore. The apartment was haunted, and she was trapped within its grasp. Sleep became a distant memory.
I was constantly on edge, my nerves frayed, my mind teetering on the brink of exhaustion.
She couldn't concentrate on her studies, couldn't hold a conversation without her voice trembling.
My friends noticed the change in me.
She had become withdrawn, her eyes haunted by a fear they couldn't comprehend.
I tried to tell them what I was experiencing, but the words felt hollow, inadequate to describe the terror that had become my reality.
They dismissed her claims as exhaustion or the stress of adjusting to a new city.
But I knew the truth. I was living a nightmare.
Desperate for answers, Sarah delved into the history of her apartment building. She spent countless hours in the local library, poring over old newspapers and historical records, searching for any clue that would explain the haunting events.
Finally, I stumbled upon a chilling account of a murder that had taken place in the very apartment I now called home. The victim, a young woman named Marie Delacroix, had been brutally murdered by her jealous lover, a prominent judge, in the late 1800s.
The judge, consumed by guilt and paranoia, had bricked Marie's body within the walls of the apartment, her spirit forever bound to the scene of her demise. The details of the murder sent chills down Sarah's spine. She had read about many crimes before, but this one felt different, more personal, as if the story was reaching out to her from the past. Marie's story mirrored her own growing terror, her desperation echoing through the decades. The diary entries revealed a woman who had been wronged, her life cut short in a brutal act of violence. Sarah could almost hear Marie's whispers in the dimly lit room, each word dripping with sorrow and anger. The shadowy figure, Sarah realized with a sickening certainty, was the vengeful spirit of the murdered woman. This realization brought a new level of fear. It was no longer just a story, but a haunting reality. The ghostly apparition in the vintage dress seemed to follow her, its presence growing stronger with each passing day.
She learned that the judge, driven mad by guilt and haunted by Marie's ghost, had taken his own life within the very same walls. The courtroom, once a place of justice, had become a scene of despair. The judge's final moments were filled with terror, his mind unraveling as Marie's spirit tormented him relentlessly. His spirit, it seemed, was also trapped within the apartment, forever bound to the scene of his crime and his eternal punishment. The empty room with a single chair now held two restless souls, their anguish palpable in the air. Sarah could feel their presence, a cold, oppressive force that made it hard to breathe.
Sarah felt a surge of empathy for Marie and a growing sense of dread. The old portrait on the wall seemed to watch her, its eyes filled with unspoken pain. She knew she had to find a way to help these tormented spirits, but the task seemed insurmountable. She was not just dealing with one restless spirit, but two, their tormented energies intertwined, their pain and anger seeping into the very fabric of the building. The flickering lights in the dark hallway cast eerie shadows, making the abandoned building feel like a living entity, feeding off the sorrow and rage of its ghostly inhabitants. Sarah steeled herself for the challenge ahead, knowing that she had to uncover the truth and bring peace to the restless souls of Marie and the judge. Realization dawned on Sarah. It was a moment of clarity that struck her like a bolt of lightning, illuminating the dark corners of her mind. She was not just living in a haunted apartment, she was living in a prison of tormented souls. The walls seemed to whisper secrets, and the air was thick with sorrow and despair. The spirits of Marie and the judge were trapped, their rage and sorrow fueling the terrifying occurrences that plagued her days and stole her nights. Every creak, every shadow was a reminder of their unending torment.
Fear threatened to consume me, but a spark of defiance ignited within me. I could feel the weight of their anguish, but I refused to let it break me. I wouldn't let their darkness drive me away. I had to be strong, not just for myself, but for them too. Their stories deserved to be heard, their pain acknowledged. I would find a way to help them find peace, to release them from their torment. It was a daunting task, but I knew it was the only way to truly free us all.
She consulted with local historians and paranormal experts, learning everything she could about the tragic events that had unfolded within the walls of her home. She pored over old books and documents, piecing together the puzzle of their past. She needed to understand their pain, their anger, to find a way to help them move on. It was a journey into the unknown, but Sarah was determined to see it through, no matter the cost. In the end, Sarah couldn't stay. The weight of the spirits, their sorrow and rage became too much to bear. She moved out of the apartment on Esplanade Avenue, leaving behind the haunting presence of Marie and the judge.
But the experience left an indelible mark on my soul. I carried the memory of their pain, the echo of their torment wherever I went.
New Orleans had shown her a side of life, a glimpse beyond the veil that she could never unsee. The city's magic, its beauty, would forever be intertwined with the haunting memory of the apartment on Esplanade Avenue.